I have never been as excited about pastoring than I am right now. It's almost like this is my first year of pastoring.
Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Intentional Churches podcast. We are here to help give you practical wisdom and insight into leading your church and helping you radically align your teams and your people back to the Great Commission. And so if you're a church leader who's brand new to Intentional Churches, or even if you've been listening to this podcast for a while and you're ready to take your next step with us, we actually have a free resource to help you get started. So head over to intentionalchurches.com/start, and you can download 3 chapters of the Intentional Churches book for free. And these chapters provide a clear overview of what it means to be an intentional church, the ChurchOS Living Toolbox, and will kickstart your journey. We've got a great conversation in store today, and as usual, I'm joined by my good friend, Doug Parks. What's up, Doug?
How's it going, Erin? It's getting hot in Vegas.
Yep,
very hot.
It is heating up. And we have a new friend with us today. Dr. Carlos Kelly is with us. Carlos, good to be with you. Maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you? What do you do? Just give us and our listeners a little bit of context on Dr. Kelly.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm Carlos Kelly, and I am the fourth of 5 sons, the son of the late Reverend Don A. Kelly and Julian Kelly. I'm originally from Little Rock, Arkansas. I am married to the wonderful Letitia Kelly. This July the 22nd, actually, we'll be married 30 years. And
wow,
we have
done.
two incredible sons. Our oldest son, Jalen, is actually serving in the Air Force. And our youngest, Caleb, he'll be graduating from Candler School of Theology with a Master of Divinity in May. And so we're excited about that as well. And I have the privilege of serving at the Beulahland Bible Church here in what we call Middle Georgia. We're actually Macon, Georgia, but we have 2 campuses, campus in Byron as well. And so pastored for over 26 years, and I have enjoyed each and every year God has graced me to serve.
It's amazing. Middle Georgia, man. I learned this phrase, and it always makes me think about the Hobbit, the Middle Earth, like Middle Georgia, where you live. Hey, congrats. Has your son ever been stationed out here in Vegas at Nellis Air Force Base?
No, actually, right now he's in Japan. That was his first assignment. Yeah, so we've been out there 2 years in a row.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about your church and the journey? Kind of give us some context for your church. What's your church like? What's some of the mission and vision of your church? Just give us a little bit of your ministry context.
So Beulahland is a church that's about 83 years old. We just celebrated 83 years as a church. It's a church filled with rich history. We've had 5 pastors within the 83 years. It's been known for the teaching and preaching. We've had great pastoral leadership throughout the years of this church. And it started as a small church in a house and has grown to a church of several thousand. And it's a church really that's not only rich in history with preaching, teaching, but also music as well. Actually, a few years ago, we released an album that reached the top 20 on the gospel Billboard charts. And so,
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So we're blessed to have a very gifted music ministry, a media ministry team. And really, our context, our Macon campus is really, it's in a food desert, low income area. And so the heartbeat of our church is we do a lot of outreach within our community. That's what we really are known for, because through every crisis and every season, even through the pandemic, we've been there to serve and to meet whatever the need has been for our community. We have great relationships with various community organizations, and so our mission really is shifted over the last 2 years, and we're really in the process of implementing ChurchOS, which has revolutionized what we do. We've always been focused on the Great Commission, but this has helped us to really clarify how we actually go about implementing that process. And so really that's where we are in this season. It's been a major undertaking. I'll tell you that this season that we're in, of shifting the focus, changing the mindsets of what was and what we believe God is calling us to really be and do as a church.
I can't wait to hear how you got here on this through the ChurchOS toolkit. But let me back up for our listeners and ask you just a phrase that you've used that I've gotten to know over the years, but some of our listeners may not know it. And then maybe talk practically how you've helped try to solve it. And that is food desert. For a listener who's never heard that phrase before, what does that mean?
Really, we're in an area where there are many families who literally don't have food, the food and the resources for their daily needs. There are children who literally go to school just to get a meal. And so during the summer seasons or when their school breaks, uh, they really don't have a source of food. And so that's where we try to partner and provide food programs. We're every Tuesday and Thursday here at our church, we're giving out food to families. We do massive food distributions that can help families for weeks and months at a time. Our deacons throughout the summer, for years, have always provide daily food for children. So yes, it is literally that there are many within our community that struggle with just the basic necessities such as food.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because I do believe that we do have churches within the IC network of churches who are similar, who do a lot of outreach work around providing base needs. But there are a lot of suburban churches that would not be able to explain that the way you did. And so I'm grateful for you doing that. And Erin, I'm sorry I'm jumping in here so much.
No, go for
But
it.
I just want to jump off of the ChurchOS journey. I don't want to talk the technicalities about ChurchOS or any of that, but kind of describe for our listeners kind of what the church was like before in terms of strategy around the Great Commission, where and how you came to conviction it needed to change, and then, how's it going? How are people receiving that change? That's a lot of questions in there. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, since I arrived 10 years ago, the focus of our mission really for the past 26 years have been focused on the Great Commission and the Great Commandment, and so that's always been the hallmark of my ministry. And there haven't been a year that's gone by that I didn't preach the Great Commission. And so that's been a focus of our church, of what even the structure and the things that we do. But we didn't have a system in place where we were intentional of how we were able to really shift the mindsets. To be honest with you, I didn't realize how um, how many of our church members had a consumer mentality. And what I mean by that is that when they come to church, it was what's in it for me, and sing to me, preach to me, give me what I need, and I go back to my wonderful life, as opposed to being, what can I do? What is my purpose? Jesus kid says, I came to seek and to save that which was lost. I'm not here to do what is for me. I'm here to do and serve those and give my life for as a ransom. And so we had to shift our focus, and that was something that happened really every year. I get away and I spent a week at what I call the mountain. And just so happened 2 years ago, our executive pastor, Greg, gave me a book. And I began to read the book, Intentional Churches, and I literally read it in one day. I just couldn't put it down because it was like one of those aha moments. It was something, I had followed the simple church model, but this was something that was like, man, this is it. This is exactly what we have been really praying for. It's almost like we've been going around it, but we have never just really hit the nail on the head. And I realized, okay, this is it. And so we came back and we began that journey. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy, and it hasn't been easy. It takes a lot of work. It's a commitment. And if people really want to experience a culture shift, they want to experience change, they got to be willing to put in the work. And we we got together a steering team of about 14 people, and they've been together over a year. It's right now about 14 months. And we've had some knockdown, drag out meetings where we deconstructed everything that we thought was wonderful and grand about Beulahland. And we started really going under the hood and seeing really how we were as a church. And so from that's when we began to unearth and realize, hey, these are the shifts and the changes that needs to take place. And there was so much buy-in and so much. And so this is the first time that, I normally do it really in a vacuum by myself. This is the first time I've done it within community and was able to come up with the mission collectively, the vision collectively, our strategy collectively. So now there's buy-in because there's a whole group that was together in really coming up with this whole process.
That's great. That's great, man. Was everybody okay? The knockdown, drag out? Did everybody survive?
Yes.
Good.
Where did you begin? So you set out in a new vision, you put people in the same room, you tried to deploy some new strategies to kind of accomplish this new vision. What are some of the key things that you guys have maybe either stripped away or added, to really begin pursuing this kind of moving away from consumerism and into like everybody kind of having some skin in the game, right? What are some key things that you guys have done?
So one of the things that really praying through this process, the Lord really just really convict me was take your time. Don't rush the process. Because, when you're excited and, you're ready to, to move forward with everything, sometimes the challenge is that group that's been in that room for over a year, we're ready to make the move now. But there's a whole church that has not been in that room. They have no clue about the terminology, the concepts, all of the things that we're presenting. And so it takes time. And so that's why we really, I really have been very intentional about preaching. I've been preaching it for a whole year, for even trying to change anything, implement anything. I spent a whole year preaching on this whole process. I've spent times meeting with the powers that be, the influencers, the leaders and different ones. And really, we just started with some very easy wins to get the process going. And so for us, say for instance, easy win for us was just simply changing our website. That was, believe it or not, our website was horrible. We didn't realize how horrible it was until we looked at it through the lens of the one. And then when we realized, okay, our website was more for us than it was for being evangelistic. And so we changed that, as well as we got a new app and just little things like that. Now we were able to communicate, put things out there, have certain messages where now people are starting to really grasp the direction which we're going. I just actually this January had a vision night where I cast vision and really just kind of share with them our 5-year plan and how this whole process, how it would be implemented. And I knew that just sharing vision one night that everybody was just going to get it, but we really began the process of planting seeds. And that's what I see these initial steps of, really just planting seeds and just continue to plant seeds. And in doing so, we know that over time that we'll reap a harvest and mindsets will begin to transform.
Yeah, so many churches are going through this right now. I think just everything you're delivering is so helpful. The patience thing, Erin, it's almost becoming a theme of this season's podcast. Be patient, go slower, allow it to develop. I'm wondering, are you, with all the planting you've been doing, are you seeing, are there any stories of fruit of ones or 99s who are becoming active in evangelism, or are you seeing any fruit like that yet?
There's a lot of stories, to be honest with you.
All right, give us what are two of your best?
Well, here's the thing. we noticed. So when I came to Beulahland really initially was an older church. And when I say older, 50 plus, primarily was the you know,
Easy,
you didn't have that. Yeah,
easy.
yeah, we didn't.
I'm
Well, I'm
50
50
plus.
myself. So yeah, I'm 50 myself. So yeah,
Aaron, Aaron.
but I'm saying older. Well, we have
Yeah,
to accept the fact that we're getting older. But
yeah, I do.
that
I do.
younger demographic, there was a void. It was a very small demographic within our church that either you were under 18 or you were over 50. If you were anywhere in between 18 and 50, you were in a very small community. And so, that's something, we had prayed about and I've been praying. Then all of a sudden, God just started shifting the demographics within our church. We noticed that the majority of the people that were joining were between the ages of 18 and 35. And so that's when we became more intentional, with this whole process of reaching that demographic. That's who we have to really defined as our one. And so in as we started this year, we set some goals and things in place, and this has been our highest year of decisions. Matter of fact, a couple of Sundays ago, we just baptized 41, uh, and
Yeah,
Wow.
and yeah,
yes,
yeah,
that is
and
awesome.
and the majority of them were young people, the majority. And we've seen God just really bless us. We have kids coming every Sunday, and it's blowing my mind. It's this, I mean, it's this wave of really young, between 18 and 32, just coming to the church, and just seeing how God is moving in that way. And we have our members who are bringing people, inviting people. And so there's a new energy because we have made that a priority within our church.
So I hear that you guys have prayed intentionally and specifically for that, but what other things do you think have contributed to such a younger demographic kind of showing up at your church and wanting to engage?
Well, of course, the favor of God, but also I think because through this process, we had to reevaluate how we presented the ministry itself. For instance, again, when we talked about our website, to be honest, was for older people. It was very antiquated, and our social media, our app, and so we started really considering that younger demographic with even the look of our church, the presentation of our church, even when it comes to the stage. Most of the people on the stage were older, but now we have younger people, more involved, and even with our video announcements and different things that we do, there's representation there, so they can see themselves. And so I really feel that making those moves, and then we also created a new young adult ministry that has really gained a lot of momentum as well. And so I just think being more intentional in those areas has really helped uh, gain some momentum with that demographic.
Yeah, that's cool. Doug, what else would you ask around that?
I just give us kind of a name, one of those young leaders that comes to mind that maybe even is a newer believer, and give us their journey. Just tell us kind of how they got there and what they're up to, and maybe even how you're thinking about developing this younger generation.
Sure. There's a young gentleman named Braxton. Braxton came to our church. Actually, he was engaged to a young woman who he married, and he ended up joining our church, I think, by default because she was already a member here. And I remember our first encounter was really through we have an annual 5K run, and he won the 5K, and that was our initial interaction. Well, he was one of those that would come to church, but that was pretty much it. You would see him, and you know, he would be gone. And over time, we started our executive pastor and myself just noticing him, talking to him, building relationships, and then all of a sudden, when we created this steering team, he was one of those young individuals we were led to ask to be on the steering team, and he accepted. And I tell you, that was one of the best things that could have happened because he has contributed so much to our church because he had a perspective that many at the table did not have. He was not involved in any ministries. He was one of those that just would come to church, and he could give us perspective of what it was like to come and not be involved per se in the trenches of ministry. And as well as, being a young adult. And so he's grown. I've noticed that he's inviting his friends to church. As a matter of fact, he makes sure they come and meet me and let me know this is their first time. And I mean, this is multiple times. He's planning visits. And he's one now. He's taking a VIP now within our church where he's helping to align our ministries to make sure that our ministries are helping with the discipleship process. And so he's really has matured to going from not being involved in ministry to now he's helping to structure and organize our ministries.
That's great. For our newer listeners, you referenced VIP is just a project, if you're not familiar with Intentional Church's language, but he's already running a project. That's awesome. Why do you think he started inviting right away? Like, did you guys train him in that? Was there a strategy behind it,
No.
or did he just do it naturally?
It was organic. And I think what happens is that, he was a part of the process of going from ground zero and walking the entire journey. And so he has ownership of it. As a matter of fact, this past, I think it was October, we had our staff to get away for a week, but also our steering team came up to what I call the mountains to spend some time with us as well. And he was there. And I just think because of the buy-in, the ownership, the sacrifices that is made, it's in his heart. And now this is just something I believe that just happens naturally of just wanting to see people saved and wanting to reach the people in his sphere of influence, the ones who he has relationships with, and bring them to church with him.
Wow, that's so good. Thanks for sharing some of that. I want to go back to something that you said earlier, kind of in passing, that it just struck me. You said that, in the past, that when you have sort of changed direction or needed like leadership insight, that you have sort of done that in a vacuum. But over this last year, you've really tried to invite contribution. You've been having these meetings, all these things. Talk to me about that. What are you learning about like co-creation, collaboration, as opposed to maybe, different ways that you have thought about leadership in the past? Just talk to us about that for a minute.
Well, I'll start by saying, after this past year, I said to myself, why didn't I do this earlier? Because this has been years of going and laboring. And you have to understand, when I say a week, I go there. I always request, they don't do it as much as they used to, but I would request them to remove the TV out the room. Just me and God. I have just, posted all over the walls and just writing and just hearing God, and normally would come down from the mountain with a vision and direction. But it would always be a challenge because although I could see it and although I had heard from God, sometimes it's hard for other people to really understand, to receive it, and then run with it. This time was different because, again, they were in the room the whole time. So as we prayed together. As we really brainstormed and thought through things, as everybody had a voice. There were even some of the process we voted on certain things that I had already written it down, but the conclusion they came up with was exactly what I wrote down. And so,
isn't that awesome? It's so good.
Yeah. And so in doing so, it really just showed me that sometimes we actually are kind of like Moses trying to carry the weight by ourselves. And really, God has put so many incredible people around us who have just as much insight that can contribute to the process if we would learn how to collaborate. And so it was a lesson for me as well, because I had just been accustomed to doing it this way for so many years. It was just the rhythm I had in ministry. But this was really, to me, it was a breath of fresh air. It re-energized me. I told my church this year, this is my 26th year of pastoring, and I told them I have never been as excited about pastoring than I am right now. This is like, it's almost like this is my first year of pastoring. So it has recharged me. It really gave me a new sense of excitement. And so because it's not just me, there's a team of people who see it not as the pastor's vision. This is our vision. This is what God has given to us. And they really have taken ownership of it as if it's theirs, like it is mine.
I just have to say, at the IC Conference 25 this year, this Better Together thread you're talking about, this is actually Jesus' design of leading is together, is awesome. And if any of our listeners weren't there, you need to be there in 26. Shameless plug for a minute there. Carlos, I want to ask you, because some of our listeners, what you're describing, it was kind of, I believe, a generational way or expectation that was placed on the lead pastor, a responsibility almost, that it is your job to go up on the mountain, and you literally went on the mountain to hear from God and then come back down and lead the people. That is a very commonplace thing. I think it's becoming lesser in the younger generations. But if we have a listener who's a lead pastor right now who's in that same position where they're just running that same play that you were, how would you advise them to enter this transition, and why? Because I hear the energy. We can hear the energy in your voice when you're talking about an excitement about the church and where it is, but help some of our listeners that may not be there, that are still in kind of that grind of the responsibility of it all.
Yeah, I would say, one of the things that when we selected our steering team, these were not just obvious people. Um, what I did was I had my staff to make recommendations of individuals that they identified as faithful, people who were committed to the church, and people who had a life of integrity, that they submitted their names. And what I did is I prayed over the list, and we just led on those 14 individuals. And so what I would say is, one, in trying to build a team or a collaboration to move from doing or trying to gain vision within a vacuum, you got to make sure you bring the right people to the table too. Because I also saw through the process, if I didn't have the right people at the table, it also could have gone the other way. And so I think prayer must go into who do you sense God is leading to join you at the table. And I'm not saying it has to be people who are your yes people, because you don't need yes people at the table. You need people who have strong personalities, but also who are faithful and committed, and who will tell you the truth and be honest with you. You need those individuals, but you also just need people who really who are open to God, not closed-minded, and who are really really just sold out for the cause of Christ. And I would just say that's a big part of that process. And then also, it's all right. I would tell the pastor, it's all right to be vulnerable. It's all right not to have all the answers. It's all right to share your mistakes, your failures. There's sometimes things we have these bright ideas, but they don't work, and it's okay to admit it. And I think through vulnerability and honesty and transparency and praying through that process, working together, it literally helps bring people together, but also help to really make sure everybody understands it's a safe space to really share their true ideas and their beliefs. And I think that's how you get to that one place of getting to vision and really discerning God's voice within a room of people.
Yeah, that's good. I just appreciate so much of what you're saying, because when obviously the right people have to be at the table, but then when the right people are at the table, and you also said you didn't use these words, but it's what it made me think of, like unusual suspects. Like it's not just the people that you would predict would be at the table, but kind of some different sorts of people at the table that just bring such unique perspective. I think we can't underestimate how that helps carry vision forward when it's not just you, like you said, pushing your own vision that you heard from God out, but now you have this whole team of people who are like, this is us. And there's something really powerful about building this group identity and what that does to cultivate conviction, not only in that group of people, but in the people around them, So now they're not just complying to someone else's vision, but they're convicted themselves and living into conviction around the vision, which I just think is really, really important. Your church is on just like a really cool journey, and I'm learning a lot listening to you. I wonder, like, as you look into this next year or two, as you keep trying to slowly steer the ship, like we've talked about, this is not fast work. There's no silver bullets for this kind of work. But as you keep slowly turning the ship, like what are you hoping to see when you think about reaching ones in the next couple years through the people of your church? How are you hoping to see relational evangelism grow? What are you hoping? How are you hoping your church grows? I'm not even speaking numerically. I'm just saying in terms of culture and heart and all of that. Maybe just speak to what are you seeing over the next couple of years?
I'm just praying that our mission is really lived out. And really what our mission is to cultivate a community passionate about making disciples, to lead people to the next step with Christ. And so my thing is that if we can get to the place where the passion for the church at large is simply about making disciples. Matter of fact, that's our motto here. We make disciples. We couldn't come up with anything, more, clever and catchy. We said we're going to do what the Bible says, and that is,
we're
we make disciples.
And so that's what I'm praying for. As we created a motto, and forgive us for rebranding it, but we call it the Beulahland way.
That's great.
And so we just really are just hoping people will embrace the process where we can get people to just have a heart to get people to believe in Christ and the desire to belong to the body of Christ and become disciples of Christ. And that's our whole, if really, that's really what we want to see. There are other factors and other things that comes with that. But at its purest form, that's our heart's desire, is to really where, our church celebrates salvation. Our church celebrates baptism. Our church celebrate, people connecting with small groups. I really just having a passion to just see lives change and really wanting to go and reach that one. Seeing that, I believe that's what I really, not really caught up in the numbers, because I believe if you're really caught up in the heart of something and you really have the systems in place, the numbers are going to really take care of themselves.
Yeah, we oftentimes say, in our IC work, we lean into what we call the Acts 1:8 model, and that what you're saying, that so much of what we measure and count and celebrate in church historically has been actually, if you really were at the core of owning the Great Commission personally, would all be byproducts. The number takes care of itself. We're not in charge of outcomes is something we also like to say a lot with IC, that we're trusting God for whatever increase may or may not come. Are we learning as Christ followers to die to self and to share at that root level of one, of an individual, not thinking as much organizationally and all that. So, Dr. Kelly, one of the things that makes me really curious. So you said one campus was in, the food desert, lower income. Where's the other campus? Where's it located?
Other campus is in Byron, Georgia. It's right outside of Warner Robins. It's It's near actually the Air Force Base. They're in Warner Robins.
I've been to Warner Robins once. Okay. One time.
So if you've been to Warner Robins, you probably passed our church there, because it's Byron and Centerville and Warner Robins are on the same street, so to speak. they're right there together. So yeah, we're.
What does that reach zone look like there? Because if I remember right, that's very different than what you described at your other
Yeah.
campus.
Yes, it's different there again because many of in that community are connected to the military. A lot of them there. There's Fort Valley State University that many of our members work there, and so many of them. It really Warner Robins is more transplant, sort of like community. A lot of people are not from there because of the Air Force Base. You have a lot of retired members, people who were stationed in Warner Robins and decide to stay and make that their home. And so, yes, it's a different, and that's why when we were really trying to define our one by having two campuses. Sometime when you have one church, two campuses, you're trying to make it one thing, but when your reach zones are different, sometimes you have to create two different ones because the communities are different. And so that's what we had to do. We had to, be honest about the community, surrounding community near the Byron campus.
So smart. So smart. Like I was going to be my next question. Like, how did you reconcile having campuses in essence that have very, very different reach zones? And
Mm.
love the approach. Are you seeing the same? Are you seeing fruit in both campuses then?
Identical,
Isn't that
identical.
amazing? Isn't that
Young adults, it's the same thing, and it's happening in both places. And as a matter of fact, we have three services. We just started a second service at the Byron campus, so we have a 7:30 and a 9:30 at our Byron campus, and we do 11:15 at our Macon campus.
a
And the same
7:30
thing is
a.m.?
happening 7:30 in the morning.
Who comes
Now
at 7:30 in the morning?
remember, we have a lot of retired military people who are
Oh
accustomed
yeah,
to getting up
yeah. They
bright and
get up
early, and
early.
so yeah, so we have a strong crowd at 7:30 in the morning.
That's all.
Wow,
That is
that's amazing.
unbelievable. It's great.
There could never be a 7:30 a.m. service in Las Vegas.
No.
I would be the only person in attendance, I'm pretty sure. So that's awesome. Carlos, as we were kind of come to the end of our time here, I'd love to hear from you, just for our listeners who maybe you're in a place similar to yours, where they're beginning to try to make some of this shift that you're talking about of, moving people in the direction, not of what is the church going to do for me, but what do I have to bring and to offer to the church, and how am I reaching my ones? And I just think a lot of our listeners are kind of in the middle of this process and transition with their own churches. What would you say to those leaders? What would be, a piece of advice that you would give them, or a piece of wisdom from your own experience that you would offer for other people kind of in a similar boat as you?
So let me just share from my own personal experience. And sometimes some things you don't really think about when something so exciting is happening, and you're seeing how now your church can really become aligned with the Great Commission. I think also you have to give people space to grieve. And what I mean by that is now there's something new that is requiring something of them. So that means the way church once was is now dying. And so when sacred cows die and when certain things that people held on to, it becomes hard. And that's a lot of time where the resistance come in. We just did a workshop with all of our ministry volunteers, and many of my staff and team members were coming to me saying, "Pastor, uh, people are still saying they don't even know who the one is." And I said, "You guys you can't really discern what they're really saying. What they're really saying, they're really not saying we don't understand who the one is. They're saying, why do I have to change? Why do we have to do this? Why is this so important?" And so you have to understand it takes time for people to really embrace the change, and it's not going to happen overnight. And that's why you have to walk people through the process. Give it time. Allow time for them to get clarity, to get understanding, to let them know the benefits of what will become of them committing to this process of how this will not only bless the church, but also bless their lives and enrich their lives as they go to reach the one. And so I just think a part of this of trying to implement this whole system and process, I think sometimes we fail to consider what it's going to take for everybody to buy in, and being really empathetic and sympathetic to those who are holding on to the old ways and really don't want to immediately buy in. Give grace, give space, give time, and just be persistent. Continue to stay the course, and you'll see as people see lives. And so you can't deny 41 in one Sunday being baptized. You can't deny the fruit. And so as the fruit continues to come forward, they'll start buying in and realize this is for the glory of God.
Yeah. Amen.
It's golden.
Wow. Thank you so much. Just such a good word. I'm not going to say anything else because I'm going to leave it at that. That was just really helpful. Dr. Kelly, thank you for just your time, sharing your story, the journey of your church. So much good to learn from what you've shared. Doug, as usual, thanks for jumping in. And to our listeners, thanks so much for listening to the Intentional Churches podcast. If this podcast has been helpful to you, please leave us a rating and a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This just helps us as we try and grow and reach new leaders. And don't forget, if you're ready to take your next step with Intentional Churches, you can download 3 chapters of the Intentional Churches book for free at intentionalchurches.com/start. We'll see you next time.